All right, what we're going to do today is we're going to do what's called a valve injection clean and a fuel injection service on this older, it's a 2004 Hyundai Elantra or Avante. A lot of people are always asking me questions about what is a VIC and why is it necessary, and you know, of course, fuel injection flush is something that some customers don't really understand. This vehicle came in with approximately 9 codes stored in it, all O2 related, NOx sensor related, misfire codes all over the place. Found out that whoever did service the work before put a coil, or I'm sorry, wires and plugs in it, and they put some cheapy plugs in it, gapped them at 50 thousandths. Gap on these are 43 thousandths. So pull the plugs out, put some nice iridium NGK plugs in it, gapped them properly. Of course, they weren't gapped. Everybody thinks that when they come out of the box they're gapped. They're not gapped, or sometimes they will be, sometimes they won't. It's better to be safe than sorry. So always check the gap before you put your plugs in your vehicle. Make sure they're where they're supposed to be. As you can see, we put a new coil on here, and what happened was the customer, or the mechanic that did the work before, he busted these connectors on here. I don't know if you can see these or not. It's my first attempt with a head-mounted GoPro, so bear with me. But you can see these connectors right here. These connectors were all busted. As a matter of fact, I have the old coil right over here. Right here. This is what we ran into. First of all, the firing plug, the firing order, he had these two reversed. They were in the wrong location. Swapped them over. It didn't hardly made a change. I was really surprised at how easy the vehicle idled. But I reached down here while the vehicle was idling. As you can see, the gray connectors on here. All right, let me get this guy out of the way real quick. He's getting to be a little bit of a problem child. Also noticed that when we did this, or when I pulled this off, the this having mass airflow on it. This part of the hose, well, again, this is not secured properly, so I might have to modify this to make sure that this tightens up like it's supposed to. But this wasn't fully on the throttle bore, which when we looked at our mass airflow PIDs on our scan tool, we could see that. But anyway, let me see if I got this thing adjusted right. Let me push it up a little bit. Okay, there's supposed to be a way to zoom in. Okay, maybe not. But these are the connectors. Okay, and this is the new coil pack that we just installed. This was the old coil pack. Zip tied on there, wires plugged in there. This one's just as bad. Connectors are just all tore up. So what I did is I reached down here and I just barely touched it, and the engine started little farting around. Of course, I didn't notice that these were broke. I mean, everything looked like it was plugged in. And then when I touched it, I was like, well, what's going on here? You know, and pulled it out, and sure enough, there it was. It was the wires just literally just fell out of it. So I mean, it ran on 2 cylinders pretty decently as well, but there's definitely a problem there. Anyway, we got our firing order up, and we got her going. We're driving. We still have a little bit of a lag and a textured idle, which I'm not very happy with. So I am going to do a valve injection clean, which what we're going to do here is we're going to run a chemical through this IV, what I call an IV bottle, old school everywhere. We just put the chemical in here, we crack the slime, and we got an atomizing vent right here, which as you can look in this tube, you can see that there'll be a small drip. We don't want a steady stream or anything like that. We want a small drip, and it atomizes as it goes in here. It's a combination of air and the chemicals becomes atomized, and it goes into the intake and cleans out as much hydrocarbon as we can, build up dirt, stuff, everything inside the engine. We do that and try to clean off the valves and some of the injectors, you know, the pintle ends of the injectors while they're in the combustion chamber. But we're also going to do fuel injection flush too. So give me a second, I'll try to get everything hooked up on here and I'll be right back. It'll only be a nanosecond for you. Okay, we're doing the fuel injection flush right now. So what we've done here is we put our fuel injection flush machine, we're rolling it around. We connected it to the fuel line underneath here, our fuel line right here, and we're running it straight to the fuel rail. This is the only chemical that's running through the injectors, cleaning the injectors and creating propagation. So we're taking the fuel pump fuse or relay out to kill the fuel pump so that we don't have any fuel coming out of this vehicle. Fuel pump relay right here. Right here. And our line, you can see it to the right. Our line, if you can see it, has been disconnected. So that goes straight for our fuel cell to the fuel pump. So we definitely want to make sure that there's no fuel coming out, where the fuel pump's not activated, and basically run the vehicle off of the chemicals we use to clean the fuel pump, to clean the injector. I had to double check on my gauge because my gauge is not calibrated properly. It's showing that we're way out of pressure, but I've already verified that the pressure is at about 48.9 psi. So we basically just sit here and let this guy run on this until it's done. And then once it's done running on this fuel pressure, done running the fuel chemical, then we move on to doing the VIC clean. Normally I try to do them both at the same time, but this gauge has got me a little fumbled. I just had to replace the fuel pressure regulator. Still getting the same variant. I don't have time to get a gauge right now. I will repair this and make sure everything's on top of where it needs to be. But as for right now, I'm just going to leave it as is, just to make sure that we're not pushing any bad buttons there. Okay, now we're going to get back to this. This is what we're going to do now is the valve injection clean. Just want to let you know, this is the type of stuff that I use to the injector cleaner. It's an OTC. It's really good stuff. I've been using it for years, and I've seen it really do some awesome cleaning on vehicles. This is not something I don't think you can purchase in your local jobber. As a matter of fact, 90% of the professional grade type cleaners you want to use are not going to be purchased at your local jobber. I mean, don't do those fuel additives, because 90% of the time you're just putting something in there that's going to cause more damage. So what we're going to do here is we're going to proceed further into trying to get this done. Now, I can't find this stuff anymore, but I do have the ATC3 system for induction cleaning, but this is a simple PMI job, but hopefully it'll clean something, do something a little bit better. It actually comes with its own induction cleaning hose and kit. Last time I tried to order some of this, I normally ordered by the cases. It was no longer available. So what we're going to do is use what I have in stock, because I prefer to use the ATC. Okay, now make sure I got this right. Next step, the camera's not on, guys. I'm just learning how to do this with this GoPro on my freaking head. So I'm going to pour this chemical inside this IV bottle, and this thing is
pretty freaking old. I haven't used this thing in, oh no, I use it all the time, but I've had it in my possession for quite some time. We have the cap that has an atomizing hole in it so that we can subtract mass and add mass. And now what we're going to do is we're going to crank the vehicle up. And we're going to bump it up to about 2,300 RPMs. Another thing I want you to hear, if you can hear it, I don't know if you can or not, but listen to this fuel pump. When I turn this vehicle on, which I advised the customer, he said the fuel pump's brand new. It's probably one of those you know, super duper fuel pumps that you get from, you know, those awesome jobbers. So here we go. Probably the cheapest pump they had. I'm gonna crank the vehicle up. Now wait a minute. I wanted you to hear that fuel pump. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but it's quite loud. So we're going to crank it up. We're gonna run this accelerator up. And this tool is used to apply brakes. They use them on alignments. They use them for a number of things. But I'm using it on the gas pedal, and I'm going to bump the acceleration up to about 2,300 is what I actually want. Very touchy sometimes. A little too touchy. Baby steps here. Baby steps. Now that we've got the vehicle running at $2 grand, we're going to crack this line. And as we crack this line, we're going to watch the fuel come down in this IV drip. What we want it to do is we want it to drip. It's a steady drip. Now, what this is actually doing is it's taking this chemical in through the intake, going through the intake onto the valves, cleaning up the valves. The engine's bogging down a little bit. Let's see if we can reduce the flow. Thinking maybe it takes a little bit of time. Yes, it does take a little bit of time. See how we have a steady drip going on in there? We don't have nothing to worry about. Let her sit here and run at about 2,000 RPMs. And she is cleaning hot valves. She's getting all the hydrocarbons taken off. And hopefully by the time, even with this chemical added to it, the engine's running way smoother than what it was. Again, the original deal on this was it came in, this thing wouldn't go over 20 miles per hour. It just kept, it almost acted like a bad catalytic converter, to be honest with you. I did a back pressure test on both sides of the post and pre and post cats, and they both checked out good. No loss in vacuum with a vacuum test. I didn't get a chance to plug the E-scan in it and take a look at anything. I don't think the E-scan's even going to pick up anything on this thing, but we'll try that a little bit later. Done a number of little bitty things on it, try to get this thing back to life. Again, it had 9 different codes in it, and most were related to misfires and related to oxygen sensor stuck rich. Another oxygen sensor running lean. which is very rare. It's not very rare, but it can be if it's a bad oxygen sensor. But it turns out the oxygen sensors were not bad. The catalytic converter was not bad. The firing order was incorrect. Still ran pretty smooth. Smooth enough for whatever shop that did this before for them to let it go and basically tell them that they couldn't get it fixed. They couldn't fix it. So we're just trying to get this thing ready to go. We got our power back. This thing, as old as it is, it still needs some work. A lot of work actually, but we're going to work on that as well. Talked to the customer last night for about an hour and explained to him some of the things that we need to do to get this thing, because he doesn't want to buy another car. He doesn't want to have to pay full coverage insurance. I'm in Texas, so everything's different here, even the weather. If you don't like the weather, just wait 10 minutes. But this is what we're just doing. We're just trying to clean up the hydrocarbon deposits in the engine. I cleaned the throttle plates. The throttle plates, carbon buildup on the throttle plates was almost rock hard. I had to let them soak a little bit with some B12 Chem Tool. Finally got it to break loose. Oh, and our issue with the mass airflow tube, this tube piece right here, is that the actual clamp was clocked in the wrong position. So the lower part of that clamp has a little clip on it that kind of pinches it together. So rotated this thing around, got it on there solid, got her clocked right, locked it down. She's good to go as far as that goes. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna wait and see, let this thing do its thing, and then we'll get back to finishing this up. Okay, so we've finished our VIC clean, our fuel injection flush, and I can tell you just by sitting in the vehicle and the way it's idling that it has improved at least 70 to 80%. Oh yeah, it's a lot better. This thing had a really rough textured idle. I mean, you could look at the steering wheel. The steering wheel is vibrating pretty harsh even after the coil and the tune-up, or the plugs, the proper plugs being put in there. Sorry to put you guys all over the place here, but I'm working out of my house right now as my truck is down again, as I am still trying to redo it, or trying to get it pretty, so, or the way I want it anyway, so I can work on shit. Alright, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna see, even we had an acceleration issue. She's definitely picking up a lot better. And one thing, after a valve injection clean, you do want to run the vehicle. I mean, the stuff is catalytic converter safe for all you actual technicians that may be watching this video. The vehicle is actually the chemical actually is good for catalytic converters, so it doesn't do any damage. But what we want to do is we want to run it down the road and make sure that any hydrocarbon deposits that got put in the catalytic converter are blown out. This normally liquefies it and does a number of issues to it. So for right now, he's got jumping around in the transmission as well, but he doesn't want to. He wants to fix it. I don't know if it's a sentimental thing or what. I think it just mainly he doesn't want to buy a new vehicle, so he just wants to invest whatever money he can into getting this vehicle. See there, that makes me a little nervous. So like I said, we just want to make sure we got our pickup back, our power back, make sure she's doing what she's supposed to do as far as driving. Okay, that's really starting to get a little worse. Alright. Since I am a mobile technician, I don't really do transmission work. I sublet it out. Anyway, there's your VIC clean. The engine is idling. Oh my God, so much better. It's no more shaking, vibrating like a dog shitting a rock. Even with the new tune-up and the new, it was way worse than after we did but it had no power. It wouldn't get up over 20 miles an hour, or 25 miles an hour maybe, which, you know, normally wants to lead you to a catalytic converter. Looked at the PIDs. It's very limited information on even manufacturer or even on generic, OBD generic. We couldn't get much of a PID information on here. We were able to look at simple stuff, mass airflow, O2s, but not fuel trims. E-scan will not communicate it. I mean, Barney's brilliant, but E-scan only gives me very limited information as well. So, all right, so I think we're good for now. This jumping has got to be taken care of. I'm getting a little too nervous to be driving this thing around until he gets it to a training shop. Anyway, there's your fuel injection flush and your valve injection clean for those of you who requested that I post a video explaining just exactly what it does as far as drivability. This probably wasn't the perfect vehicle considering it has a transmission issue, but that's what it is. Okay, I gotta handle this. Talk to y'all later.